Welcome to The Culture. We rest at the pulse of the community, providing all things news, music, fashion, events, and everything that we talk about in between. It's a lifestyle. We are The Culture. Hello and welcome to The Culture. I'm your host, Jessica Garrett-Motkins, and coming back to The Culture for part 2, we have Belinda Gordon-Battle. Welcome to the show, Belinda.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Part 2. Let's
Yes,
do it.
yes. It was so good. I loved our show. And we've had over 2.4 thousand views of the show. So there are a lot of people out there who absolutely agree with the discussion that we had. Black women, mental health, being honest to yourself and finding balance and all of those great adjectives that we say we're going to do.
Yes.
But this show is devised to assist you in finding the tools to get it done. Belinda, what was some of the feedback that you got last week?
Oh, I'm just appreciative of young ladies, elders, just Black women in general that tapped in and were able to send me text messages and check out my website and speak to me over Instagram and Facebook just to say, you know what you're saying is correct. These are some things that we have to work on individually and collectively, but we want to know a little bit more. So some of the feedback I received was, can we talk about trauma a little bit more? Give us a little bit more insight into trauma and how that affects us as women. So I'm just glad that we have a few moments here on this platform. The culture is always open to talk about mental health and mental wellness. And I feel safe here, and I want other women to feel like this is a safe place to listen, learn, grow, and develop.
So let's start right there. You said that they were contacting you about trauma. So let's go ahead and dig deep into that.
Absolutely. One of the last statements I made in the first episode was that we often, as Black women, as women in general, we hold ourselves responsible for trauma. And often we are actually the ones that are survivors or trying to survive something that has been traumatic and placed upon us. We may start out as victims of trauma as far as intergenerational trauma, meaning things that have happened to us in our life, but also have happened to the generation prior to us. Childhood trauma. As children, oftentimes things occur that we are either directly engaged in that's traumatic, or it can be vicarious, meaning that we witness domestic violence. We witness someone else being hurt, and we carry that trauma with us. We often walk into abusive relationships, even if our gut and our intuition is telling us that this is not a healthy relationship for us with men, with women, with organizations, with people in general. We walk into those relationships and we maintain those relationships, even though those relationships are not healthy. They make us feel bad. They make us second guess ourselves. Sometimes they make us become victims of physical trauma, meaning that we stay in relationships that we know someone is actually going to hurt us and has hurt us in the past. There's also trauma that we don't talk about, like pregnancy trauma, maternal trauma. We even have maternal psychologists, therapists that can work with us through pregnancy trauma.
What is that?
What is pregnancy trauma?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Oh, that's a great question. So on TV, pregnancy and delivery is romanticized. The idea that we go through our pregnancies as women and remain healthy and strong every step of the way, that we do not have any mental or emotional concerns during the 9 to 10 months, I always say it's 10 months of pregnancy, that everything is just roses throughout your pregnancy. But in reality, there is often a lot of trauma associated with being pregnant and with delivery. And we do not talk about that as women, but some of that actually has an effect on our health. And so maternal therapists, maternal psychologists, they work with women through that trauma that they may experience as they go through their pregnancy and after the pregnancy, after delivery also.
That's the one part that I've heard of, the trauma after,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't recognize that there was trauma during the pregnancy.
During the pregnancy. All of our thoughts are not healthy when we're pregnant. There's always a concern, and it may just start from the point of a child being conceived, the relationship you may be in, or whatever caused you to become, whoever was involved in you becoming pregnant, may be an issue. And that issue can continue throughout your pregnancy. The idea is to stay as healthy as possible. So if you can utilize a therapist during your pregnancy and actually discuss some of those concerns and interests, that helps maintain your mental wellness.
And going back to the abuse,
Yeah.
dig a little deeper on the abusive relationships, because you touched on something that I don't think that many people associate with an abusive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It does not have to even be someone that you are sexually involved with. It could be a friend.
Yes. Yes. Any relationship, anyone that you are in touch with and in tune with that may make you feel bad about yourself is something that you should explore. If you are in a relationship with a friend, it could be a long-term relationship, but if that friend does not treat you in a way that you feel good, that does not support you in a way that you feel good about yourself, that's something that you need to consider. Like, why do I maintain this relationship? Is this relationship toxic to me? What are my needs? What needs are being met in this relationship? And one way to do that is actually to get a therapist and speak to that therapist about that relationship. The therapist can help you peel the onion and really decide what's best for you. Trauma can be found on every level in every relationship, but it's how you respond to it. It's what you decide to do with that counts.
Talk about managing this.
Yeah. Well, we have to manage it because one of the things we found out is that trauma, or what we call PTSD sometimes, can actually lead to anxiety, depression, hypertension, or what we call in our community high blood pressure, even diabetes, or what we like to call sugar in our community. All of those things can be symptoms of trauma, PTSD, post traumatic stress syndrome. Sometimes we only talk about post-traumatic stress syndrome when we're talking about the military, but this diagnosis, this understanding, and these symptoms can be found and be prevalent throughout our community. You can have PTSD from a natural disaster, like a hurricane. So think about Miami, Florida. How many hurricanes have been here? Think about Haiti, the floods in Haiti. Think about fires. Remember the fires in California. All of these people that had to deal with these natural disasters could also be dealing with PTSD, a serious accident, whether you're involved, you know someone that's involved, or you vicariously you witnessed a serious accident, could lead to symptoms of PTSD. Balance. Balance is something that's often prevalent in low socioeconomic communities. Poverty itself can lead to trauma. Balance is sometimes a part of that system. Abuse, sexual assault, physical assault, verbal and emotional assault, all can lead to PTSD and symptoms of PTSD. Loss, the sudden loss, unexpected loss of a loved one. I recently spoke to someone who lost a loved one many years ago, many years ago, and she actually believed that she should be able to manage that loss because it was so long ago. And everyone was telling her in time things will get better. And she had been able to manage for a while, but she had something occurred and it triggered her. And it took her right back to that place because she didn't allow herself to grieve properly. Oftentimes, as Black women, we just take on the burden. We add it to that bag that we were talking about last week.
Mm-hmm.
We pick up the bag and we keep marching forward. And we don't take that time to actually allow ourselves to grieve, to work through trauma, to talk about what occurred, And that is so important for you as a woman, to find yourself a safe space, a safe person. If you don't have someone in your circle that you can talk to because they may be tired of hearing your story, this is the time for you to connect with a licensed professional therapist who can help you resolve grief, resolve issues related to trauma. It's so important. That is self care, that is self love, that you take those moments out to yourself and actually work through trauma issues that you may have in your life.
That grieving point is very prominent right now
Yeah.
with all of the cases of COVID and those who are not able to or who are looking to be able to figure out how do they deal with the losses that they've had. And people
Yeah.
have multiple losses. I was at a board meeting on yesterday
Mhm.
and they were just naming all of the staff, and the staff is small.
Wow.
And they were just naming people who have passed away
Yeah.
this year,
Yes.
this year. So grief, managing that and being able to understand what the grieving process should look like. And it is different for different people, right?
Yes. It looks different for different people, and you experience it in different ways. And it's personal. It's
Hmm.
personal. But having someone to talk to about it, one of the things, and you say this was a board meeting, one of the things I appreciate recently is having businesses and organizations call to say, will you come here and speak to my staff? And it's usually a general conversation that we have collectively, but the individual conversations, the individual discussions, that individual dialogue with the employees, with the staff members, that's when you really have an opportunity to start healing. And it also shows that a boss understands that in order for his team to be at that optimal work environment, that mental health, emotional health is included in that process. I saw on LinkedIn a teacher, a principal, sorry, she was a principal at a school in New York. She invites a therapist to come to her school and set up space in her school for her staff members to walk in, so that she's there all day long. The therapist is there all day. They can come in and out. It's confidential, but that's their opportunity to just talk.
Mm.
I remember when I was working in a school, that wasn't set up that way. I was actually in the school to work with the students, but oftentimes it was the staff members that would come into that space to, to take a moment to breathe, to do a moment of mindfulness, to do a little bit of self care, to speak on something that occurred in their life, in their home environment, that they did not want to run over into the classroom, to talk about triggers, because students, young people, can trigger you as an adult. You don't even realize it. They can say things, they can do things, and all of a sudden you're triggered and you're in your work environment. Why are you laughing? It
Because
happened
that
to you,
is,
right?
no, it has not happened to me, but I believe what you are saying
It's
is
true.
very factual.
It's true.
And the idea that we as adults think that little kids don't really get to us,
Oh my goodness.
it's a fallacy. I mean, kids really can get on your nerves, and as the elders would say, pluck your
Yes.
nerve.
Yes.
But they can find those triggers
Yes.
because they're so smart to
Yes.
really get to you. So
They're so smart. And we often think we are masking that. We go out in the world and we present ourselves at our best. So we think we're masking our triggers. And this little kid walks up and just pokes it.
pokes it.
There it is right there. And it
Hmm.
spills out. That little hole that he uncovered allows all of those emotions and feelings to spill out. And if you don't have a safe space to deal with that, guess what happens? You lose it in that space.
Yeah, that is very interesting because I did not know that there were work environments
Yeah.
that had a therapist on site
Yeah.
for the employees. I think I was watching maybe Showtime or HBO's a show called Billions,
Mhm.
and there is a licensed therapist on staff that assists the traders.
Yes.
Uh, they come in, they talk about different accounts and problems and there's one woman, she walked into the therapist and the therapist told her that she couldn't see her that day. And she spoke some words of encouragement to her, being the only woman in the room. Just she needed to be edified in a way that she would show up to that meeting, understanding the power that she had. And that little interaction was what she needed. And then the next scene, they showed her showing up in the room, telling the room of men her plan, and then them all embracing it. But it wasn't until you just mentioned it that I even stepped outside of the show and thought that would be something of a benefit.
Yes, it's a real benefit, and I applaud anyone that steps outside of the traditional thinking and allows a therapist to come into the workplace. One of the first places I was able to experience that was with the Department of Defense when I was living in the DMV, the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia. I knew you were going to say that. Like, what's that? The DMV. And just having that opportunity to actually be in the office space, in the field with our military, members of our military, going into their space, going into the space with the families. So they don't have to come to my office. It's non-traditional, but it's effective. And we have to go to the people these days. It doesn't make sense for us to thank everybody. When I say us, I mean therapists. Therapists have to be willing to go outside of their box and go into the community and work in non-traditional settings. Keep things as confidential and private as possible, but still be visible. This is how we normalize the fact that everybody is going through something and we can support each other, but we have to normalize the fact that we are all in a space and a place where support is needed.
And you touched on schools. We talked about the therapists for the teachers. Let's stay in that setting and talk about our little Black girls.
Absolutely. And I want you to know that the therapist is not just for the teachers. It's for everybody in the schoolhouse.
Okay.
That's important because everyone in that space is going through something and has witnessed something or is concerned. You will be surprised at how the receptionist or the secretary or the attendants or the custodial staff, they are aware of things that are going on in the schools. And they want to make sure that the young people, the children, are taken care of. And they also want to understand mental health and mental wellness. So when I go into those school spaces, it's open to everybody and not just to the teachers.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's carry on with our little girls, our little Black girls. One of the things I wanted to talk about, I recently realized is going on social media. There are a lot of people placing fights, girls fighting each other at school in the bathrooms, girls fighting each other in the community on social media. And I think people are doing it for entertainment, but what we don't realize is that that's a part of the cycle of trauma. And we are continuing that cycle by making it so available and giving people so much access to those type of negative behaviors, those type of hurtful behaviors. So I want to make sure that we take some time to embrace our young Black girls, protect them. If they're in a school setting, if you're in a school setting, you see a young girl who's consistently aggressive, that she is fighting, or her verbiage, her voice, her tone is always aggressive. Take a second and consider, is there something else going on? Maybe even instead of sending that child to be suspended, allowing one of the consequences to be that that child also gets some support, some mental health support from someone that's a professional in that school setting or outside of that school setting. We are oftentimes looking at the trouble, the trauma, and instead of supporting the trauma and helping our young people through it, we suspend them. We send them right back into their homes without the coping skills. We send them right back into the community without the coping skills. And that's important for us as adults to take a deep breath, even confide with another adult, have a meeting, a conversation with another adult and say, do you see this in your space? What do you think is going on? What else should we do? But we cannot continue to look at our young people express themselves through violence and aggression. We have to step in and say, there's another way. I know a therapist that can help you through some of this.
What I hear you saying is it takes a village.
Oh my goodness. Yes, we have to be that village. We cannot walk away. It's our responsibility to look at a situation and come up with a solution that's going to be beneficial to everybody involved. It's our responsibility to understand that everyone that walks into a school, everyone that walks into your office, everyone that walks into your church, everyone that's a part of your organization probably has experienced some trauma. So we have to be empathetic. And when I say I take a deep breath, even in the midst of that person having negative words towards you or towards someone else, take a deep breath and think to yourself, this is not personal. This person probably has experienced something and does not have another way that they can express themselves. So let me take a step back. Let me be the one to protect myself at this moment and not engage in that.
I
And
want
then,
us. Oh no,
go ahead.
go
No,
ahead.
no,
No,
you're fine. Go ahead.
And then, because I don't want the comments, they're gonna say, Jessica, you cut her off, and she was getting ready to. She was speaking to me.
I ain't talking no more.
Okay. So what I wanted you to close with this um, attraction. I know that there are some women that are out there that may continue to find themselves in this same situation
Yeah.
over and over and over again.
Mhm.
And the person who they're finding themselves in this situation has changed. It's gone from this person to that person to this lady to this boss, but it is fundamentally the
Mhm.
same situation that they continue to see over and over again,
Yeah.
whether that's abuse, arguments, someone taking advantage of you, someone doing something to you that you think that should not have happened.
Mhm.
What can you say to that person today to help them to move in the right direction?
I have to say, and I never realized that we were running out of time until you say it because we get so involved and so
Yeah.
engaged in our conversations that I don't realize the time. So excuse me for running over time.
No.
But I do want to say to those women, our sisters, these are our sisters
Mm-hmm.
that are going through this, that there are patterns in our life and we ignore those patterns. It's really important that you take some time, take a few moments, reflect on your feelings associated with different people, different situations. If you cannot do that on your own, that is something a therapist can help you walk through. They can help you identify the patterns that are in your life, things that you may want to adjust, to modify, to improve your life overall, things that you may not want to pass on to the next generation, things that you may want to speak to your elders about that occurred in your life. There are patterns that we have just simply because we're human beings. It happens to every single one of us. I don't know if you heard last week when Jessica was saying her daughter was doing something that she never taught her to do. It's just innate. It just happens, and we pass these things along from generation to generation. So I encourage I encourage everyone to just take some time out, especially for Black women. Most Black women are looking for a mental health professional, and they want someone that looks like them, that understands them. And it's hard because there are not as many Black psychologists, social workers, therapists out here as we may think. But we are out here, and we do want to support you. And you do have the opportunity to work with us and engage with us. One of the things that Delphine Jervis and I did last year, Delphine is here in the area. She is with Breakthrough Care Resource Center. And one of the things we did last year is we curated a video compilation of Black and Brown therapists in Dade and Broward. so that our community could go to YouTube, look up I've Got Five on it. It's a mental health campaign. Look it up. Look at those therapists. Identify someone that speaks your language in that video, that looks like you in that video, and reach out. Contact that person that you feel comfortable with from that video. We cannot continue to allow ourselves to be super women, but still not take care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing all the boss moves that we need to do in the community, and we're still not taking care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So take that moment. This is your month. It's still Women's
History Month.
Yes, Women's History Month. And it's important for you to take that time out for yourself and start celebrating yourself and taking care of yourself through self-love.
And I want to close with this, ladies. You are more than enough. Take yourself out to dinner. Pull out that fine china for your dinner with yourself, enjoying yourself. And if you decide to go out to a restaurant and they say, oh, it's a table for one, no, I am with myself.
Yes.
Because you are more than enough. And just embrace that. And to all of my single women, embrace your time being single. There is a spot for you if that is your destiny to get married. That'll come within time. But while you are single with yourself, there is so much for you to learn about yourself and what you are attracted to. Because some of the things you think you're attracted to may not be what you need in your life.
Yes. Please. That's a great closing.
Yes. And we can spend a whole nother show talking about that.
Healthy choices.
Yes,
please.
yes, healthy choices. Lord, help them figure it out, Jesus. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great time, Belinda. I don't know where our time goes every week, but we always get into it tonight. My 2 cents is another good time. We invite you all to come. Sometimes our conversation switches over to these type of topics. It's a great time. We invite you to come and join us tonight. My 2 cents right here, 6 o'clock, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and Video Mix Live. We'll see you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.
The Culture is produced and owned by the Culture Media Group and cannot be reproduced